So it's good to have you back, Barry. For those listeners that don't know who you are, give them a quick rundown. Who are you?
Yeah, cool. It's great to be back, Carl. It's been a while since we got on one of these, but my name is Barry Lee Cummings, and I do a number of different things. But one of the things I work with is my initiative called Beat the Cyberbully. So I go into schools and I talk to young people, mums and dads, about cyber safety awareness and using the internet and technology as safely as possible. So I'm a massive technology fan, and I'm very interested in where technology is going and what it's doing for us. Because I also have a digital marketing agency, a small one where we focus on SEO, and we built a tech platform called Cobabble as well, and I've got involved in another digital business called Contractors Direct. So technology is my world. I'm by no means an expert, but it's my world. It's where I spend a lot of time, and I like discussing how we can leverage the technology as best we can. And from the Beat the Cyberbully perspective, it's really to help young people, especially, navigate this world that we've chosen to bring them into, of screens and digital tablets and social media and all of this kind of stuff. And they're getting themselves into situations that are pretty horrific in some cases, and as much as we can do to help them make some better decisions online and also help mum and dad catch up with them, or at least stay in touch with them, then that's my core focus would be the cyberbully.
And that's exactly why I like having you on the podcast, because your opinions matter a lot, especially with your methods and techniques and what you teach to students, mums, dads, and teachers. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, the good, the bad. Is it good? Is it bad? What's your opinion on it? I think it's a hot topic at the moment because we are at the age now where it is accessible. We are already implementing it into our daily lives, into our work lives, which is what I wanted to ask you a few questions today about, is on what capacity are you using it professionally and personally? And so that's the topic for today. So we'll dive deep. We don't have too long, but I imagine we can go on for ages talking about this topic. So
We
we'll
could.
come back. Yeah, definitely good. And so, yeah, I think having said that, I'm going to start off with asking you, are you currently using anything related to AI?
Yeah, I think like the rest of the world, I've clocked into Chat GPT as it went nuts and everybody started hearing about it. It caught my eye, obviously, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I delved into it just to find out what exactly we were looking at, because if you were to, which I don't advise you do at all, is accept what you see in social media and mainstream media as the truth, as it were. You'd think this is changing everything, that it's going to come in and we can utilize it for so many things, which we can. But I also wanted to just check, well, what is it actually? Is it really a game changer, or is it a really, really good aggregator? Which is what it seems to be when it comes to Chat GPT. It's a great aggregator of content. So for the content marketers out there and the marketing people, it's a fantastic tool, because you can ask it to create lists. You can come up with the recipes for everything, and I've borrowed that. People are pushing out there on social media all these recipes that you can put in, what operators to utilize to get it to work for you. But it's still limited in terms of what it can get for you. And there's also still some limitations because, as you've probably seen, and some of the listeners have, there's certain questions you ask it that it doesn't answer, because the human beings behind it have prevented it from doing so. And again, you can get into the ins and outs of the left, the right, and et cetera, and what it's allowed to say and what it's not allowed to say about certain people. But from a professional perspective, definitely using it for an ideas generation perspective, because I have heard of some people who were really mesmerized by this, looked at it and thought, this is incredible, would ask it to write school essays, the reports, blog posts, all of this kind of stuff without checking it. And that's the first mistake, because if you just tap something into ChatGPT or any of the other equivalents, because they're all coming out now, Microsoft's invested in OpenAI, Google's coming out with another one, which I can't remember the name of right now. So it's happening, that this snowball is moving. But you've got to check what it comes up with to make sure that it's also what you wanted to say. Because as soon as ChatGPT was launched, I think it was a young man, one of the Ivy League universities looked at it and goes, oh, that's bad. And so he designed an app where you can put the content that ChatGPT creates into his app, and it will tell you whether or not it's regurgitated or it's original. So again, from a school education perspective, if you put the title of your essay into ChatGPT, it churns out what looks like an amazing essay. You copy and paste it and submit it. These schools are now putting it through his technology and coming back to you saying, actually do the work, please, Barry, because that's just ChatGPT. So as soon as it gets into it, people are finding ways of coming up against it again, as it were. Not against, that's the wrong word, but there are ways that it can be used for incredible shortcuts to get to a point where you can say, okay, I didn't have to come up with all those ideas. ChatGPT or an equivalent AI did. Now I can build on those ideas. That's where I see there's a huge value in this. Just
Yeah.
taking whatever it spews out as read, that's a dangerous game.
Yeah, it's almost like an assistant. I mean, for the capacity I've used it so far was to give it some commands or instructions to assist me with making a presentation
Mm-hmm.
or a proposal for something or a pitch. And it would come back with something that I would be like, wow, do I need to pay you for that now? Or,
Yeah.
at least say thank you, because what it did come back with, I'm not going to lie, 10 times better than what I could have come up with in that space of time.
Yeah.
And I have blindly copied and pasted, some stuff. And then I've realized, well, wait a second, that's not my personality showing through on that. So I will change a bit here or there. So then I've used it as inspiration and changed what I needed to. And that's just now. So, and from
Yeah.
what you were explaining on those other guys' usage of it, this is still in its early stages. This is what we have access to now. Imagine in the future, maybe even 5 years when it's advanced even more, what kind of automated commands can be done, or coding can be attached to, or algorithms that we can attach to anything open source.
Absolutely. And it is just the beginning, and it's fascinating because of what we can already do. And it's just literally opening the door. But as you said, in 5 years, 10 years time, this will be a normal part of our everyday. Companies like Microsoft don't offer up, I think it's 100 billion investment that they're putting into OpenAI if they don't think this is going to fly. And so
Did you
this is
just
going to
did
be
you just
some,
say 100 billion?
I'm pretty sure it's 100 billion is what they've agreed to invest in OpenAI, which is the company that owns ChatGPT, over the next number of years.
Christ.
Don't quote me on that. It's either 100 billion or 10. It must be 100. Yeah, I think it's 100 billion
Man, I
because,
thought 1 billion was a big number. 100 billion
yeah,
is insane.
insane. And so again, it's just indicative of what the people in the know and what
Mm.
opportunity they see for this, because you think about the idea of smart technology, and now, that was not many people would have an Alexa or smart light bulbs or a Nest thermostat, and that's pretty commonplace, and
Mm.
everyone's doing it, and everyone's turning on their AC from home before they get back to the UAE. They're turning it off, they're making sure it's on, and they're making sure the lights are coming on so that people think there's somebody in the house, and it's pretty commonplace. But again, you only have to go back, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And if somebody said, oh yeah, I've got this, they said, oh, wow, new, cool. You've got an Alexa or a Dot or, Google Home or something in there. And now it's almost commonplace. And the same thing is going to happen with AI and things like ChatGPT, but it's going to happen even faster, because what we've seen is these jumps, which have been in many cases monumental, have happened in a much, much shorter period of time. If you go back in time through evolution of, from horse to car to radio, TV, internet, and everything is happening in a shorter period of time. I
Yeah.
think it was, 1 million users on ChatGPT within the first hour of it being launched. And to
What?
get to 1 million subs on YouTube, or 1 million subscribers on Instagram, or 1 million users of the radio and the TV, it took a lot longer. It was a meme that was out there, but yeah, it was an hour for 1 million people to jump on it and check it out, and that's why everybody was getting those messages saying our servers are are falling down, because
Yeah, I got
everybody
it
was,
the other day. It's still
yeah,
happening now. I
yeah,
used it in the first few days, a couple of weeks ago before I recorded a podcast with Miguel from Eventigrate, talking about the same topic. So I was
right,
doing a bit of research before then, and I got into Chat GPT, and after realizing how helpful it was, I came back to it, I think, on the fourth or fifth day because I was like, well, I might as well use this to aid me in my work.
Yeah,
And then it just gave me that message: we're receiving a high volume of users. Type in your email to be notified when, basically, we'll give you some
get
attention
back
again.
on. Yeah, yeah, and then you just go off and you come back 5 minutes later and you can get straight back in again. But it's also testament to how many people are taking it on. It was also something, and again, I don't know the number, but that if you go and research it, that their cloud computing invoice is massive in terms of how much it's costing them to be able to host all of this, and then the data processing power to be able to go off and evaluate, collect, correlate, and evaluate data to produce a list or a blog post or an essay or a report or a slide in milliseconds. I mean, it's huge what's
Yeah, I
being
can imagine.
required there. And what I also find interesting is it's just reinforcing that knowledge retention these days. It's not really an important skill to have. We don't need
Mm,
to. When we were at school and we were tested on regurgitating information, why? What's the point? You don't need to, because now with a simple voice command, you can get billions and billions of petabytes of data to your phone,
mm,
where more than you could ever retain, and give you the information. So that's not where the skill set lies anymore. It's about how do you interpret what is being served up to you so
yeah.
quickly and
And
use
what
it
questions you can
effectively.
ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always about questions. It's always, people always get stuck on people's advice and whatnot, but you can tell somebody's levels of intuition and intelligence by the questions that they ask, and
Yeah.
listening to the questions is actually way more important. So there are some people out there asking some really cool questions of Chat GPT, and it's coming up with some really interesting answers, not just around technically, but also just around humanity, and emotion, and processing those things, where again, inevitably the conversation moves to can it be sentient and all of this kind of stuff. But it's interesting, and it's a little ways off, but it is interesting the answers it comes up with. And you ask about, what is love, and how does this work, or what is a relationship, and human things, human emotions, and
Mm,
how it's interpreting data to come up with an answer for that. It's fascinating. And again, it's fascinating for me. I think it's scary for some people, because they do look at it as like, oh, the machine is coming, it's going to take over, it's taking over our jobs, it's going to take over this, it's going to take over the world. It's Skynet equivalent from
I
Terminator kind of thing.
was wondering when
um
that phrase was going to turn up.
yeah, and
I
it's
mean, it
because you keep
is. The
hearing it.
movies tell us all, don't they? There's a lot of
Yeah,
inspiration we can get from the movies. I've got a lot of references. I pay a lot of attention to the messages, the scripts, and the subliminal and hidden messages that are written within them as well, and what they mean to me. So, Terminator was released, what, almost over 20 years ago now, I
oh,
think.
easily.
80s.
Yeah, it was
Was it the
80s.
80s?
Yeah,
80s,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, and that was giving us the heads up even back then. And
yeah.
like you said, in most technology, it's inevitable. It's not how we can prevent it from happening. It's how we can learn to live with it. And Star Wars comes to my mind a lot with the droids that they use in all of their day-to-day stuff, farming, wars, battles, everything that you see in the Star Wars franchise. It's just how you choose to interact with it. I mean, talking about um, emotions and whether the AI itself in whatever platform, let's just talk about Chat GPT, for example,
Mm,
whether it's sentient or not. I got caught out the other day and realized immediately whether it had some kind of moral compass to it,
mm,
already. And I don't know if it was the guys behind it putting parameters and whatnot, but it
mhm,
just, it, I'll tell you what happened. I asked it to put a pitch together, and then I wasn't satisfied with that pitch. So I re-asked it based on the information I gave it above. Can you put something together that's a little bit more catchy? And then
right.
it got me thinking, oh, hang a second. If you can be a bit more catchy, maybe you can tap into the human chemistry a bit and manipulate someone's decision making.
Mm,
Can you persuade someone and put something that's persuasive together? And I think it was about getting into a business, getting past the front line of, emails and getting straight to the person I need to speak to.
right.
And it come back and gave me a right telling. It was like, these companies have these frontline systems in place to prevent any people, including spam, getting through. It gave me this whole spiel, and I was like, "So you're going to do it for me or not?"
Yeah. Yeah. Just answer the
No.
question. Can you do it
Yeah.
or not? Yeah. I'm not
Basically,
doing
no.
it.
Yeah. I was like, all right, okay. So there are some limitations.
There are, and again, I mean, what I'd be fascinated to see is the database of questions it's been asked by humanity across the world, because that would actually be the interesting thing to just tap into. Or how many people are asking it to find a shortcut, or to do this or to do that, and where that moral compass comes from, because it has to come from people at the moment. It doesn't come from
Yeah, at
it,
the
it's
moment.
learning, but it's coming from the programmers. But it would be fascinating to see what people are asking of it. And a load of the online marketers are already, you can buy a course on how to leverage AI in your business. You can buy a course that gives you a recipe book of all of the prompts and operators that you can use to get it to generate a year's worth of content within 30
Mm.
seconds, et cetera, et cetera. And they're already out there. People are selling that and people are buying it. We're gullible. People are buying into it as a shortcut. But I would be fascinated to see some of the more interesting questions that are being asked of it, and more importantly, what it's being allowed to send as a response to those questions.
Yeah, that's pretty technical. That's the stuff that goes into that is mind blowing on how it decides in those milliseconds what to throw back at you. I mean, I like the fact that you're interested to see what kind of questions it goes that have been plugged into it, and the data set that it has, that it's machine learned over however long it's done that for, to come back with a response. And it very much reminded me of my theory with how long AI has been around for. And I've had conversations with this in the past, but I think it's been around for as long as the internet came alive. I say came alive, and no pun. But
Mhm.
when Google first came online, and as a search engine, and you start typing in, where can I find this? Where can I find that? Essentially, they're questions, but then that evolves into the type of questions and things that get asked into the search engine, like Google, even this far ahead to today. It's the same thing, right? You're still typing in a question into a taskbar or a search bar, and that just made my mind tweak that Google itself is essentially AI, or has been since the beginning. Again, only theory, but it would make sense.
Yeah. Well,
And the types of questions that have gone into that.
it's definitely machine learning, because now you can see that evolution whereby when you type something in now, it pre-populates.
Mm,
It knows what you, or it thinks it knows what you are going to ask for, especially based on all of the data that you've given it. I used to use this example, is that you type in to the search engine, Taj Mahal, for example, and depending on what you're looking for, you could be looking for the Taj Mahal in India. You could be looking for the Taj Mahal hotel in Las Vegas, or you
mm,
could be looking for the Taj Mahal Indian takeaway that you go to every Friday night. And depending on when you are searching, Google's going, "Oh, it's Friday. He needs the takeaway," and that would be
yeah.
the number one result in what you're coming up. And so it's learning your patterns. It's taking all this information, it's processing it, and it's learning what you as the user are expecting of it. And it is also processing the billions and billions of questions it's asked every single day to say, well, if I'm typing in, how do I fix a carburetor on a, and then it goes, well, how many vehicles have got a carburetor? What could it be? What's he searched up for before? Oh, he's for a BMW 1960. And then you go, oh yeah, that was what I was looking for. And
Mm.
we just think, well, of course that's what I'm looking for, and it should know what I'm looking for, and it does, because of the amount of data that we've already put into it ourselves, but then also as society.
So where do you think AI is going to next with what we've already seen? Have you researched into this? Have you seen any hints? You got any inside scoop, or where do you think it's going?
I haven't, to be honest. I'm very much of the live in the now kind of approach to what's happening, because it's all going to happen very, very quickly. And I'm not in any kind of position to influence that. So I'm going to be a consumer of it. And I'm always interested to see what's coming next. But I think that the advantages of it are that it will start to remove some of the more mundane, administratively heavy tasks, jobs, things that need doing from humanity. And people will say, well, is that a good thing? Because actually, maybe it's a good thing that we have to do some of these things ourselves because there's learning to be gained from that. And I agree to a certain extent, but it's also that when you even, let's say, um, automated self-driving trucks, and they're coming. Elon Musk has revealed the first ones. They're going to come, and there's all these truckers everywhere saying this is unfair. It's going to take our jobs, and yeah, it is. But we've also known that for the last 5-6 years, and so
Oh, even more. There's
we'll know
always been a
more. Yeah,
threat there of jobs being lost because of automation.
yeah, and it would, for me, I don't know enough about it, but I always think, well, is it safer for a computer to drive that truck for 24 hours straight because it can, whereas we can't? Well, we could, but we'd be struggling and we'd be taking all sorts to try and keep ourselves awake, and there's an inherent danger with that. And a human being in charge of an 18-wheeler road train and plowing down through a road and nodding off, and how dangerous that can be, and that we could take that danger away from that
Mm.
particular situation. Again, it's a tiny
Well,
little situation in the grand scheme of things.
there'd be no danger there at all, though, would there? Because imagine a highway full of automated trucks self-driving themselves, and there was a crash. Like, who's going to die?
Yeah, the
So,
computer.
yeah.
Nobody would, and let's say that they were sentient at that point. Well, then you could just download it into a new truck because it's there, and
I'm
there's
sure
so
the
many
AI will have
connotations. Yeah,
the AI will have something to say about that. That's not
exactly.
fair.
It's not fair. I don't want to be this kind of truck, but it could be that it just, there's so many situations where, again, thinking about our evolution, is that do we need human beings sat on a conveyor belt where one person does this and one person does that? And yes, I understand that that's employing people, but could we as a society employ them doing something else that
Absolutely.
would not be quite so mind-numbingly boring for them? And people say, yeah, but they don't have the skills. It's like, yeah, okay, again, we know that this is happening, so can we upskill? Can we retrain? Can we
Well,
do
that's
this
just the
now?
thing. Now we freed up so much of time. Like the argument is like people don't like change, and it always comes down
Mm,
to that change. You're set in your ways. You've got your set of skills that you learned in your younger years, and you're comfortable now. You don't want to do anything different. But if this automation gives us that available time, that free time to learn new things, why not? So, for example, with
mm.
the truckers, um, now, I don't want loads of hate mail coming through from loads of truckers now, but at the end of the day, if all the trucks are now automated, that frees them up to go and do something else.
Else. Yeah.
Sorry to say, but I've changed my
And
skill set a lot over the years to adapt, but also to explore other markets to see if I'm better suited somewhere
yeah,
else.
but not everybody thinks that way. And this is why I'm very cognizant of that in terms of some of the things that I say, and my outward perception of the world. Because as you said, there's some people that, even given the opportunity, that it's not looked upon as a positive one. So, well, I don't want
Mm,
to learn something new. I don't want to travel around the world. I don't want to go and do all of these things. I want to drive my truck from A to B and B to A, like I've done for the last 40 years. And again, it's kind of, there's a part of me that says, yeah, that's not fair, because why should that be taken away from you in the name of progress, apparently? And I don't have an answer for that. Again, my outward perception is that, well, maybe there is an opportunity, knowing what's coming, to retrain. You know that the trucks are not going to be available. And I'm a big petrol head, and I'm also worried about the fact that the V8 and all of these combustion engines are going to be phased out one way or another, and that by the time I'm able to afford my dream car, it's going to be a museum piece that you're not allowed to start anymore because it'd be so detrimental to the environment.
yeah,
um, is that these things are happening, and this change is happening, and it's a case of, well, I have to think about, maybe if I know that this is happening, and as much as I don't like this change, it's going to happen. And this is almost what I have to say to parents when it comes to using technology. You might not want your children on an iPad, on TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, but it's going to happen at some point. Ideally, not when they're young kids, but it's going to happen. That's
yeah,
where their social life, that's their world. Knowing that, can we embrace it and find ways to embrace the technology? If I'm that trucker, can I do something, or can I reach out to people to help me um, make that switch in my mind that says, you know what, it's happening. And if I sit here and I bitch about it and complain about it, when it happens, I'm still going to be sat here in a really
yeah.
bad situation. Or can I get some help to help me be able to accept that this is an opportunity, and see that there is an opportunity? You know what? yes, I'm not going to physically be able to drive this truck, but guess what? Those trucks are still going to need to be programmed. So can I reskill as a programmer where I have all of this experience and knowledge of how these trucks and what they need to do and how this works and how the logistics industry works and what can and can't be done? And then I look at it and go, oh, wow, that thing that used to take me 45 minutes turning this thing around in this, that, if I program it to do it, it can do it in 3 seconds, and it
Yeah.
does it and it saves money. It can go back and, all of these iterations suddenly start happening if we allow ourselves to accept the
Yeah. Get
opportunity that's there.
outside your comfort zones. I mean, to put it bluntly, stop being so lazy. Don't be so lazy. Get outside your comfort zones and learn something new. As harsh as that sounds, I mean, it's easier said than done. But if the moment, like you said, the moment you learn to accept it is the moment you can understand and accept the change a bit more. And just going back to you saying you're a petrol head, that reminded me of the movie, I think it was called Demolition Man with
Hmm.
Sylvester Stallone, where he breaks into the
Yeah,
museum and takes that red muscle car when all the
yeah,
other cars are electric and flying around.
yeah,
You reminded me of
exactly.
him then.
That would
That's going to be
be
you.
that would be me. Yeah, but it is, and this is it's happening, and I don't like it. But it's also every time I see a Tesla or a Polestar or any other one driving by, I'm like, that's incredible. I might not
Yeah,
like it, but it's incredible, and it is amazing because we're still at the beginning of that too. And I always, will stick with the film analogies, but I always find it amusing now that Back to the Future, when they go to the future, was 2015. That was the
mental.
future
Yeah,
that they went to,
yeah.
and now you look at where we are in 2023, and you kind of think, yeah, well, they made the hoverboard, they made those self tying um, trainers,
Shoelaces. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and they're talking about these different forms of power and fission and fusion power and nuclear, and you think, yeah, there's some really interesting things happening, and they are happening really fast, and I know, sort of harping on about it, and they're going to happen whether we like it or not. And so it's a decision for us to say, right, well, I know it's going to happen. So what am I going to do about that? Because as much as I could stand outside and I can protest against it, say it's not fair, and I can talk to my friends about it, it's still going to happen. In my opinion, even with a mass uprising of people to say we don't want it to happen, it's still going to happen in some iteration. And is there a way that we can maybe look at how we could embrace that from a positive perspective, or come up with enough arguments for the layperson like me to say, oh yeah, I'm a bit of an idiot. I'm thinking it's going to happen, but it doesn't have to, and we could
Mm.
do certain things another way. But I don't see um, that much evidence of that happening really, and I see more people, especially the next generation of millennials and Generation Z and Generation Alpha, they're digital natives and they want it to be a digital world. They want to use AI as their assistant or to streamline certain things so they can then use their brain for some of the more um, innovative ideas and concepts to come up with and say, well, actually, we could do that now because we've got AI that could take on half of the stuff that
Yeah.
wasn't feasible before, but
Or
now it is. So great.
perhaps reconnecting with nature again. I mean, go out, get a farm if you really want to be away from it, go off grid. Actually, having said that, and this is where we get into the dark side of it, because I'm looking into going off grid and making a sustainable eco resort and stuff like that. And the more I see this news coming out about these chemical spills and explosions
Mm.
and all that kind of stuff and destroying the environment. Well, so on that note, what do you think? I mean, the other potential risks. What do you think about it potentially allowing more centralized control? I'll give an example. When you were talking about the Tesla cars, self-driving cars, and they all are connected to a network at some capacity, even at the moment for safety. But later on, when all vehicles on the road are electric, self driving, and networked, that gives someone somewhere, access to a switch that could just be like, okay, well, your
Nobody's going
social,
anywhere.
yeah, well, even individualized, like your social credit scoring system, like they've got in China, you're a bad person here or there, so we're not letting you drive your car. What do you think about that?
Yeah, again, I'd want to believe in the more positive side of humanity and society, but I'm also fully aware that I'm sure that that's on somebody's agenda. That, yeah, we need to push people into these smart cities where they don't have to go anywhere, so we don't need those cars. And if they do have those cars, they're going to be electric. So if at any point nobody can move, we'll just turn it off. Today, you're not allowed out. Is that no other reasons? Today you're not allowed out and you can't go out because your car's off. Like, well, I want to go out. It's like, tough. And now your door's locked and you can't get
Yeah.
out because it's an electronic door. And yeah, but it's tied to my iris or my facial ID or whatever. Yeah, guess what? We control that as well. And
Yeah.
there's definitely an element of it. And again, some of the stuff that's been happening over the last couple of years with, the pandemic and people talking about this, that, and the other. And you think, is it feasible that that's what people are looking for? The powers that be, that with this idea of smart cities where nobody has to go more than a couple of meters, so you wouldn't need a car. And
Mm.
is that really, well, it's not a smart city, it's a prison.
Yeah.
That's how we manage population control. We'll go down the rabbit hole on this,
Yeah, there are
but
pros and cons to it all, isn't there? I mean, some would
yeah,
say that we don't need a smart city to be in prison. We've been in prison long enough as it is. So there are pros and cons to it. What really gets me and raises a question in my mind is the amount of content I've watched about with Elon Musk and the warnings and red flags that he has highlighted so vividly about AI and the fact that we need to watch out and the dangers of it, and yet he's an advocate for it on
he's
the other
pushing it.
hand.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that
And
all
he's
about?
already, and he's I don't know what the latest was, but the chip, he wants to get the neurological chip in there. He's at pretty far down that process where they're
Yeah,
testing legitimately, and you think, yeah, that is it hiding in plain sight? He's like, this is what's going to happen, and by the way, I'm going to make it happen. But I told you it was going to happen, and so
yeah,
everyone can't sit there and say, "Oh, well, how did that happen?" He's like, "I've been telling you for the last 10 years this is what I'm
yeah.
doing, and you've all
Because
been
I've
going, yeah,
because I've been
yeah,
telling
yeah,
you, you've allowed it.
yeah,
It's your fault, viewers and listeners at home. You've allowed
yeah,
it.
yeah." Gaslighting to the extreme, like you
Yeah,
let this happen. Like, what? Oh,
yeah.
but
We
I
don't
mean,
stand a chance. We don't stand a chance up against those kind of powers. So it's almost like just let it happen. Sit back.
well, I mean, there's the masses, there's the radical thinkers, and then there's the masses. And again, I put myself in with the masses that, yes, I can see certain things. I don't necessarily think I can have any control on it, but I also think, well, if that's the case, how can I make the best use of this situation?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
this technology is going to come, it's going to streamline some of the more mundane administrative elements of my life as a human being, of my business. Okay, great. How do I leverage that? And if it is to free up more time, and this is what it comes down to fundamentally, and again, this is going to garner some hate from some people, the world is going to be divided further into those that have and those that have not. And for
yeah,
me personally, it's trying to make sure that myself and my family are on the haves, so that when I have this time freed up by AI, is that, you know what? I think I've finally got to the point where I can have my garage and do woodworking, and I can make
yeah,
things out of wood or fake wood or genetically modified wood that comes out of a laboratory, but allows me to waste as much of it because I'm not cutting down trees. And it's not, whatever scenario that is where I'm in charge of my time because the technology is allowing us to do other things. Then that's a positive thing, because that's actually what I'm working towards anyway. And a lot of
yeah,
people are, is that the time to do something that they genuinely love and that they're also feeding their family and keeping the roof over their head and making their contribution to society at the same time. And I
yeah.
see that there's lots of positives from the technology that will allow us to get there faster,
Yeah,
hopefully.
you've got to hang on to those. I mean, you've got to develop some positivity from it, or
Mm.
most, because otherwise every day is just going to be dreary, not wanting to get out of bed. Future holds nothing but misery, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And
and that's not a
there are
great
many
place to
positive.
be.
No, it's definitely not. I think we've all been there at some point, and it's not a place that you want to be. But looking towards the future and essentially what you're saying, having prospects and prepping, making sure that first of all, starting with acceptance
Mm.
and understanding that the future is coming and to be ready for it in some capacity to some degree. I got another question for you about what you're currently doing with Beat the Cyberbully
Hmm.
and your methodology with students and your understanding of students on current technology with with the birth of the internet and smart devices and how the younger generation are using those a lot more than what the older generation has an
Hmm.
understanding of. And so you know that better than anyone I know. What are the younger generations using AI for that you understand? And what potential dangers are there with it that you'll see yourself teaching them under Beat the Cyberbully in the future?
Yeah. So I kind of alluded to that at the beginning because I've seen and heard in the schools already that there are a lot of school age people using ChatGPT to write their essays, to do their homework, pretty much.
Good
And
students.
again, yeah, they're using it to do that work for them. And this is just taking it a step further to, I'm sure many people have seen that there was a video of a kid, I don't know, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. I think it was probably 2 years ago, whilst we were all locked down, who was doing his homework, and his mum was videoing him from behind because he was sat in the living room and he's going, "Hey Alexa, what's 32 times 55?" And it would spit out the answer. So he was using that to do his maths homework because he wasn't figuring out. He was just asking Alexa for the answers to all his homework. Now students are taking it to the next level because there's a new tool available. So they just go and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, write me a 450 word essay on the impact of sustainable or non-sustainable GMOs in the hierarchy of society." And off it goes, and Brent kicks it out, and they
Mm.
copy and paste it and stick it into their report and submit it. But that also comes back to this idea, now there's the technology that will also get that a big F when it comes to your grades from the teachers, and say, look, you didn't do that. You asked the technology to do it. And actually, what was asked of you was to interpret that data. And that's where I think there's a huge difference, because some of those students that are really forging the way forwards in their own educational careers are using ChatGPT. Don't get me wrong, they're using it, but they're asking it to give them data or information that they're then taking and putting their spin on it. Saying, well, as a 15-year-old in this world, based on the information that's available to me, this is what I think. And those guys are doing some really cool stuff because they're also coming up with these solutions to the problems that our generation have created, and we can't
Yeah.
fix them. And they're going to fix them because they can come up with a digital solution,
Yeah.
where we can't, because we look at the technology and go, oh, how is it going to do
And
that?
we shouldn't
Whereas
be
they look at it,
rejecting that, right? Like a teacher's
no,
stand in that would be that's naughty, you shouldn't do that. But then on the other hand, it's almost like gamers. Like you've heard the story with kids that sit there on the video games. You're not going to make a career out of that. You're not going to make money. You're not going to get anywhere in life. This is coming from the parents. And then all of
yeah,
a sudden, 5 years later after they finish school, they're a YouTuber doing gaming and they've made millions. Have some
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, exactly. And success is the best form of revenge, right? And some
Yeah.
kids are taking that and saying, "Look, I told you,"
Yeah.
and good for them. But I think it's also on mums and dads to be able to say, "Yeah, we can't just dismiss that as not possible anymore." 20 years ago, sure, there were those that were super successful were few and far between, but now there are more and more people making a living from esports, professional esports teams, from YouTube.
Can
YouTube
I just
setting up.
stop you there?
Yeah.
Because this backs up what you were saying earlier about opportunities. The more
Mm.
technology, there are clearly more opportunities, right? More
Yeah.
people are making more money. Younger people are making more money because obviously there are more opportunities there because of
Yeah.
technology.
Which
There-
they
there's-
can see that we can't, because we
yeah.
we we don't look at it like that. When we look at the technology, we see this rectangular box. When they look at the technology, they see a streaming matrix, like in your background, and they see
Hmm.
all of these opportunities. They're like, oh, I could make it do this, or I could do, oh, if that. And again, I look at it and go, how did you come up with that? All I
Yeah.
see is a box. You see a million opportunities. And I think that's where that's the important thing for the future, is that as teachers, whether you're a teacher or not, but as adults and teaching the young people, if you have kids, you have to embrace their world to talk about these things, because it's happening. And then if we do embrace that and allow them to see the opportunity, then our children and the next generations of millennials, Zeds and Alphas are going to come and make some incredible changes to this world, and come up with some amazing solutions to problems that we have had around for so long, that we've almost just accepted, well, that's it, that's our lot. And then in 5 years' time, some bright spark 15, 12 years old is going to come out and say, I fixed it. And we'll look at it and go, huh, he has.
Yeah.
He's he's come up with a solution to that problem. And we could never do that, because it's very difficult to fix the problem with the same mind that created the problem, because therein lies the difficulty. Because if we created this problem with our mindset, it's very, very difficult to come up with a solution. We'll need somebody, a third party, an external,
Yeah.
third party, to look at it and go, well, why don't you just do this? And then
Yeah.
so everyone will go, huh, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is. Penny drops.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? I mean, you've highlighted the cheating, essentially cheating and cutting corners and shortcuts using ChatGPT with students doing their essays and stuff. What do you think stands the biggest risk or the biggest danger for the younger generation with AI developing as it is? I mean, a little bit of foresight into the future here, if we can.
I think that the biggest issue that young people are going to face is that they are still being taught from a playbook that's out of date. That's the actual biggest risk, is that the children are going to be ahead of the teacher when it comes to knowledge of AI and understanding, and still be regurgitating useless information that's not necessary. That's my real fundamental risk and worry, is that I've got, young children, that they're going to go into an education system that doesn't equip them for the world. And that's the biggest risk to the next generation. We need to adapt quickly and allow ourselves to understand that we don't know enough about it. And also, we need to change the way that the education system works, because I stand at the front of the room and I talk to 400 students as an old person, from an old person's perspective, trying to help them navigate a young person's world. And it's not lost on me that a lot of them still look at me and go, "It's interesting, but you don't really get it. You don't know what it's like to be 14 years old in today's world." And they're absolutely right. And
Mm,
so it's about trying to adapt to their world. The other risk is not listening to them. And this even more so when it comes to Beat the Cyberbully, is that they are in it right now, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 through to 17-year-olds, dealing with the pitfalls and opportunities of the digital space, the opportunities that AI offer, the next generation of Web 3.0 and NFTs and whatnot. I've spoken to 12-year-olds who've minted their first NFTs and sold their first collection. And I'm thinking, amazing, absolutely amazing. And he didn't learn that at school. And so it's one of those things where the risk is that we are still trying to force the wrong uh, tool,
curriculum.
curriculum, that
Yeah.
it's not, we haven't adapted it for the world that our children need it to be adapted for, and that's the biggest risk. And the reason we haven't done that is because we don't know enough about it, and we need them to feed into it.
Yeah.
That's where we have to work towards.
So it's almost like a brand of underwear. I mean, it's a funny one to throw in there. It just reminded me. What was it called? For us, by us. FIBA? For no, FUBA.
Fubu,
For
yeah.
us, by us. FUBU.
No,
I can't remember
Fubu,
what it was.
Fubu. Yeah,
FUBU.
it
That
was
was the
Fubu.
one.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
almost the same scenario as that. So the curriculum needs to be designed by kids for kids. How
To a
about that
certain
one?
extent, to a certain extent, yeah. Which again, you think, oh god, where are we going with this? But to this point, I have literally having a conversation with a student who reached out and said, can they be a intern with Beat the Cyberbully, or with all the digital stuff to learn? And I kind of said, I'm not sure that I can. And then we had a conversation, and actually it dawned on me, light bulb moment, absolutely, because this is my opportunity to get it from the horse's mouth. They are going to tell me what 14 and 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are actually struggling with, not what we as
Yeah.
adults think they are struggling with. She's going to give me an insight into what our children would like us as mums and dads, aunties and uncles to actually know, that
Yeah.
this is what we would need help with. This is where we want mum and dad to pitch in and be available to us. And don't worry about all of this, sensationalist stuff that we keep seeing these negative stories about, because we know about them. We get it. We understand how to protect ourselves. And we're not just saying that as 15-year-olds with bravado. We do. What we really want help with is X, Y, and Z. And nobody's paying any attention to that. And if you then get that insight, this is this for us, by us kind of approach, is that then as we listening to the children and the people who are suffering right now, or see the opportunity and go, oh, okay, well, now as the adults in this situation, whether we're entrepreneurs, teachers, mums, dads, whatever our role is, we can build what needs to be built with their input. And that's really the only way that we can be able to address any of these issues. And I think that that's the key, is listening to those that are
Listening.
in it. Yeah.
Absolutely, but being better listeners and applying what we learn from their feedback into building a better younger generation and integrating with the technology that is coming. So having said that, I think it's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barry, for coming on again. It's been a joy chatting to you about these kind of things. I know you try to stop me going into a dark place every now and again because I love going there.
Well,
I love
one of these
exploring
days
those.
we need to go. We need to do a deep dive and just let it record, because there's some stuff that the more you talk about it, you kind of go, oh, yeah,
I
it's
wish I'd have
interesting
said that.
because yeah. But I've got to go on to another one anyway. But we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll
Yes,
get into these conversations, because I think that they're so expansive. There's so much to be discussed, and I think also from your background with your creative approach to life, the videography, the photography, it's a visual world that you occupy, and I'd like to reverse the roles and get your input into how this technology and technology in general is changing your whole market space, but also your outlook, because I
I do
think,
enjoy those conspiracies.
well, exactly, and that's why I want to get a chat, because I come out with them going, I wonder, I
Yeah,
really wonder.
you've got a very neutral mindset. I don't mean to influence you there, but like with your neutral mindset and the dark, deep rabbit hole that I can go down, there's some interesting conversations that we could have that listeners and viewers would have to take with a grain of salt, for sure.
Absolutely.
So having
Well, I
said
look
that,
forward to those.
yeah, we'll keep it with this one's nice and short. So this lays the path for more episodes for us to come up again, and I'm sure we'll get more done. So if anyone that's listening that got any questions that wants to expand on this topic, please send in your questions and ideas, and Barry and I will explore those. And if you are watching on YouTube or you're watching the video and you just want something for your listening pleasure, I'll put a link in the description to Spotify or any other audio only link so you can listen when you're in the gym, in the car, on your way to work, whatever your listening pleasures are there. Yeah, so thanks again, Barry, and we'll cut it off there, and I'll see you in the next episode, eh?
Look forward to it.
All right, let's stop that recording.